activities.
Will Ripley and Jamie Metzel, thank you so much. Let's go now to Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He's on the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House. He served both in Iraq and Afghanistan. Congressman, thanks for joining us. What's your first impression analysis of this launch?
Well, you know, as your prior guest mentioned, it should be embarrassing to an extent for the North Korean regime that it failed, but we can't look at that as something we celebrate because, as was mentioned, every time they fire a missile and it fails, you learn what failed on it. You know, maybe it was whatever part of the missile failed, whatever part of the launch system failed, and then they fix that, and then they try it again, continue through until they have basically a flawless system. So each time one of these tests happen, it's actually really bad news. And I think this is indicative and imperative on us to say we have to step up the pressure diplomatically, economically, yes, but you do that by having a credible military option. They're not good military options, right? This is not a good thing. We don't want to use the military option. It's next to the last worst case scenario, but you have to have a credible military option to force the diplomatic instrument of power and the economic instrument of power to work.
You heard Jamie Metzel, former Clinton administration official, criticizing President Trump's tone and saying that he was part of the reason why things were getting out of control, things were getting more tense. Obviously, most of the blame, if not all of it, goes to Kim Jong-un. But do you agree with that analysis that President Trump's tone and his rhetoric are bellicose and making things worse?
Well, look, I'm always uncomfortable when the president tweets, okay? Let me say. But I do think the tone out of the administration, the president, everybody, Secretary of State, and everybody else, is actually pretty good. Because the reason it looks like all this is stepping up and we're kind of playing brinksmanship is because we're bringing to light the real issue that we haven't talked about for a very long time, which is North Korea is right now in a nuclear position where we did a whole Iran nuclear agreement to prevent Iran from getting to. That's where North Korea is right now. The last piece of the puzzle that they have is to perfect their missile technology, and then they have a missile, a nuclear missile they can deliver on our allies or on us. So we have to bring attention to that, and you'd expect anytime that is confronted and that is drawn out, you're going to have increased rhetoric from, North Korea as they talk about a super mighty strike or whatever they're saying. But that is how diplomacy and, frankly, using the stick to get to the carrot and diplomacy works.
This is the 9th missile test just during the Trump administration. How would you advise the White House to respond to this specific test?
Well, I don't think you can do this isn't going to lead to, us doing a military strike or something. I think what you do here is you have conversations with China and say, look, it's not going to get any better. It's not getting better. Right now, China sees the North Korea situation. They say, look, North Korea is basically a buffer between us and American troops or American interests. And so it's in their interest right now to preserve that regime. We need to turn that on its head and make them realize that it's not in their interest to preserve the regime. In fact, it's in their interest to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, and they can be a great partner with us in that. They're a very powerful, influential country. We can use that the right way, work together on it, but they've got to see that formula has switched on its head.
The THAAD missile defense system just deployed in South Korea. Is this the right thing for this type of war to be able to shoot down a potentially nuclear missile?
Yeah, for short to intermediate range missiles, not for an intercontinental ballistic missile, but the ones that, the Koreans basically have right now that they can put nukes on. This is a terminal defense, so what happens is as a missile enters the territory, this takes it out. It actually does not have an explosive warhead. It uses just simply kinetic energy, hits the missile itself. Both are destroyed, but what it does do by not having an explosive warhead on the THAAD is it doesn't actually risk igniting basically a nuclear warhead incoming, so it just destroys the vehicle. It's the right system to have there, and frankly, I think it's amazing when you see what American ingenuity can do to hit a missile with a missile in the middle of the air.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Anytime.
Sticking with our breaking news, what does this new ballistic missile test mean for keeping